All right, guys. So, back with another sermon. The name of this sermon is going to be called Vanna Whiiiiite. And I know that sounds familiar to some of y'all, but in case it does not sound familiar, if any of y'all ever watched the show Wheel of Fortune, right, you know that there are two hosts to that particular game show. Used to be the two hosts were a guy named Pat Sajak and a woman named Vanna Whiiiiite. And I think it's Ryan Seacrest now or somebody else that took Pat Sajak's spot because I think he retired. But if you recall, when the show starts up, you have the announcer that you can't see talking about the show and what all to expect, and then he names the host. He introduced the host of the show, and he goes, "And now here's your host, Pat Sajak and Vanna Whiiiiite," right? Like he doesn't just say Vanna Whiiiiite, right? He holds out her name, her last name, and so that's why the name of this sermon can't be Vanna Whiiiiite. It's got to be Vanna Whiiiiite, right? So y'all know I'm ridiculous. So anyway, let's get into this. So real quick, let me tell you what this is going to be about, and then I'll tell you the scriptures we're going to be in. But what this sermon is going to be about is this. So this sermon is going to be about people that you could call in-betweens. In-betweens. And what I mean is this. People who, they instigate sometimes. They go back and forth. So, for example, let's say you have an enemy, right? Or some people that you just don't get along with. And let's say you have a person who they go back and forth between you and your enemy. They come to you being all friendly, talking to you, wanting to know stuff, this, that, and the third. And then they take the things you say to them, and then they go over here to your enemy or the people you don't quite get along with, and they're talking to them, telling them all this, that, and the third, right? Okay, telling them your business. And then they leave there and come back to you, right? They go back and forth. And what they're doing is they're not respecting your boundaries because they're telling people that you know or that they know you don't get along with. They're telling them your personal business. So if things are going well for you, they go and tell them, and then your enemies can try to find ways to sabotage the good things you've got going on. And if something bad is going on, they really love to tell that because it'll make your enemies feel good that you're going through something. But they're acting like your friend is smiling in your face. Come on. Y'all know that song. They smile in your face. All the time they try to take your place. They're backstabbers. Backstabbers. But anyway. I'm just being goofy. But y'all know the song, that old song from back in the day about people smiling in your face. But really, they're backstabbers. They're playing you, and so you have these go-betweens that go between you and your enemy. But also, there's another type of go-between, and these are the people who they do this. They hang out with you to be seen with you, to get some type of credibility, and then they go over here to some other people. And they say, "Oh, yeah, you see, I know this person. You saw me hanging out with them. Well, they did this, and they said that, and they said that, and they did this." So they're saying all this stuff, but a lot of the things that they're saying can be lies, but they tell these lies so that they can entertain these people, right, to get some type of gain or benefit from them for them telling stuff about you. But a lot of the things that they're saying might not even be true. They're just doing it for some type of benefit, some type of gain. And you have to be careful with people like this that are only trying to be buddy-buddy with you, seen out in public, seen on social media, seen with you, so that they can say that they are friends with you and cool with you, just so they can go over here and gossip about you or say things that might not even be true, but they're just doing it for some type of benefit. So it might not be that this person is trying to stab you in the back or trying to hurt you or trying to put business out there of yours. They're just trying to benefit off of being close with you. So they don't want to ruin what they have with you. They're not trying to risk it by putting your personal business out to enemies. In fact, it might not be about enemies at all. It's just them using your name and using those moments of being seen with you for some type of gain somewhere else. And a lot of times it results in them telling a lot of lies. Oh, well, you were here and you said this and that, and it's not even true. So the go-between. So that's what this is about. And you might be thinking, well, what in the world does that have to do with Vanna Whiiiite or Wheel of Fortune or any of this? But just hold on, just hold your horses. It's going to make sense. So the scriptures we're going to be in is Nehemiah chapter 6 and 2 Kings chapter 5. And I love 2 Kings. Acts, I think, is my favorite book of the Bible, but 2 Kings is like right up there. I love 1st and 2nd Kings. I love those books. But anyway, now this will be our first go around with 2 Kings, but I believe I want to say maybe 2 sermons ago, we were in Nehemiah chapter 6, but we went through verses 1 through 15. And this message, we're only going to be going through the last 5 verses. So it'll be 15 through 19, just to make a point, and then I'll move on to 2 Kings, which will be really the meat of this message. So let's go ahead and go to Nehemiah 6 and looking at verse 15. So, real quick, just to recap, we talked a couple of sermons ago about Nehemiah and how the Lord had put it on Nehemiah's heart to go and help the people of God rebuild a wall around Jerusalem, and they had enemies. They had Tobiah and Sanballat, who always had something negative to say, and they were always trying to intimidate Nehemiah and the people of God and making them feel like they couldn't complete the task. And so they just caused a lot of problems. But let's look at this. So starting again at 15, it says, so the wall was finished in the 25th day of the month of Elul in 52 days. And it came to pass that when all our enemies heard thereof, and all the heathen that were about us saw these things, they were much cast down in their own eyes, for they perceived that this work was wrought of God. Moreover, in those days, the nobles of Judah sent many letters unto Tobiah, and the letters of Tobiah came unto them. For there were many in Judah sworn unto him, because he was the son-in-law of Shechaniah, the son of Arah, and his son Johanan had taken the daughter of Meshullam, the son of Berechiah. Also they reported his good deeds before me, and uttered my words to him, and Tobiah sent letters to put me in fear. So what we see here is this. So Nehemiah and the people of God, they've already dealt with enemies, but now the issue is go-betweens. In other words, you have people who are supposed to be people of God and who are supposed to have the back of Nehemiah, but what they are doing is they're trying to go back and forth between him and Tobiah, who has caused a lot of issues. They're going, and listen, when they come around Nehemiah, they're going out of their way to talk about the good things of Tobiah and saying all these great things. But then they look at what Nehemiah is doing and all the good he's doing, and then they go back and they report what he's doing to Tobiah. So on one hand, they're trying to make Nehemiah feel some type of way by saying the good about Tobiah, but then they take the good that Nehemiah is doing and sending the message back to Tobiah so that Tobiah can try to keep tabs on what Nehemiah is doing and the progress of the people of God so that he can interfere in whatever way he can figure out to. And so it says that Tobiah was trying to send letters based off of what he was hearing, sending letters to Nehemiah, trying to intimidate him. And it brings to mind when Jezebel, the story in the Bible of Jezebel and King Ahab, when Jezebel tried sending letters and messages out and sent a message out to Elijah to try to intimidate him. Remember that, how she was trying to intimidate Elijah, and she was also the one that got Naboth killed for his vineyard because of the words she was sending out against him that weren't even the truth, making him seem like a bad guy to get him killed so her husband Ahab could have his vineyard, and just it was a mess. But it reminds me of that, him trying to send out words and letters to try to intimidate the man of God who's trying to do good for the people. So we have the issue of a go-between. So we'll next go to Second Kings, but while you're going there, I'm gonna share something, and you'll see why I named this Vanna White. So when I was a kid, a lot of people know my dream when I was a kid was to grow up to be the lead singer of a rock band, right? I used to write songs. I used to come up with like melodies and hooks, and I kind of had the rock star appearance as I got older. But I felt like I couldn't really sing, but I always wanted to be the lead singer of a rock band. But also something else that I wanted to do that a lot of people don't know of was when I was little. I was really big into countdowns, like the VH1 Top 10 countdown, and TRL Total Request Live on MTV, and on the radio I used to listen to Rick D's weekly Top 40 countdown, but my favorite was the American Top 40 with Casey Kasem, right? And so later, I think Ryan Seacrest took his spot. Ryan Seacrest be taking everybody's spot. Every time I want to take somebody's spot when they retire, here come Ryan Seacrest. No, but anyway, but let me keep on going. But anyway, I was very much a fan of that. And then, like I said, with Wheel of Fortune, I wanted to grow up. That was the other thing I wanted to do. I wanted to be a game show host, and I wanted to grow up and do something like Wheel of Fortune or take Pat Sajak's spot. But like I said, I believe it's Ryan Seacrest that has the spot now. But anyway. Yeah, I always imagine being like the host of something like Wheel of Fortune, right? And I was just like, all I need is a Vanna White, like my sidekick. And if you know Vanna White, really, Pat Sajak is the one that does most of the hosting. Vanna White is the woman that dresses up real nice, and she helps people solve the puzzle, right? And you got that big screen behind her, and she's always wearing something nice and beautiful, and she'll be walking with them heels on, and she'll go and she'll touch the screen, and a letter will appear, and then she walks back to the other end of the screen, and she just kind of poses like, oh, look at the beautiful screen, making it seem like she wants you to focus on the screen when really she wants you to look at her because she's looking fine. But anyway, and so that was always something that I liked. And I remember years ago when I had Cow Power Ministries, I did a sermon where I was talking about how when I was a little kid, I was really big into Wheel of Fortune, and they had came out with this little handheld Wheel of Fortune game. And I really wanted it for Christmas, and my grandma got it for me for Christmas. And I know on Christmas Eve, we would open up one gift and then open up the rest on Christmas. But on Christmas Eve, everybody's like, open this one, because they knew I wanted this one so bad. They knew I wanted this Wheel of Fortune game, and it was in this particular box. And so I pull off the wrapping, and I open the box, and I'm digging. And all I see is a bunch of newspaper. And I said, what? You mean I got newspaper for Christmas? And everybody in the house just started laughing. They thought it was so funny. And so finally, when somebody could breathe, they were like, no. The game is in there. You got to keep digging. So I kept digging through the newspaper and found the game. But my grandma had put all this newspaper in there to, keep it protected and soft, right? To keep it from breaking in case the box started to, get rattled around or fall or whatever. So anyway, and then it seemed like every year for Christmas, somebody in the family would always tell that story. They would always be like, remember that time, I got a newspaper for Christmas, but I remember telling that in a past sermon. But I was really into Wheel of Fortune, and I wanted to be some Pat Sajak. Well, I bring that up because of this. As I got older, there came a point where there was a particular hobby, I guess you could say, that became of interest to me. And it was a bit of a craft, if you will, something that people really worked towards, even though it was a hobby for a lot of people. Some people took it really serious and really made a craft out of it and everything. And there was this one particular woman who was really good into this craft. She was really good at it. She was very wonderful at it. And I watched her career in this particular craft. And I really adored her, and I thought she was a very underrated person in this particular craft. I saw what other people did and how other people did it, but there was something about her that just stood out. She just had this, this thing about her. I don't know what it was. She just had an it factor or an X factor about her, I guess. But I just loved how she did what she did and how well she carried herself, and you know what I mean. It just seemed like she was just a wonderful person anyway, just in general. And so I just loved seeing her do her craft, and I would go to events and watch her do her work, and it was just very wonderful to me. And I remember she ended up getting the opportunity to host this very big event. And so I get to the event late because I had to work that day, but I took this trip and I got to this place where the event was. And I remember standing out in that crowd, and I remember seeing this particular woman that I'm talking to y'all about. I remember seeing her on the stage, and she had on this beautiful gown, y'all. I mean, it was beautiful, and she looked beautiful in it, and she had on these heels, and she had the microphone, and she was just prancing across the stage, and she was talking, and she just walked so elegantly in this beautiful dress, and she spoke so elegantly on the microphone, and she was just really owning the stage. And I just remember standing there watching her in awe, and while watching her, something hit me, and what hit me was Vanna White. And it was in my mind at that moment. I was like, if I ever in the future somehow hosted this show or had my own game show on TV or whatever, she would be my Vanna White. I would, if I blew up and made it big, I would call her, like I would remember her and call her and be like, hey, like I'm gonna get to do this show. I want you to be my co-host. I want you to be my Vanna White. And the same way you were looking at this event, the way you were looking, just looking good, I want you to come and I want you to just show them what you got. You're going to be on national TV. We're going to do this. Like I had it in my head, right? Like this is going to be my Vanna White. I ain't even got to do auditions. I ain't got to try to figure it out. I ain't got to ask questions. I'm going to ask her. And I just know she's going to say yeah. Like I just had it in my head, y'all. But anyway, there's a little bit of an issue. And the issue was this particular woman. She had began to get kind of close to another particular person, and this other person was someone who had caused me some problems in my personal life. And so, because this particular person had caused me some troubles, I had decided to steer clear of this person as much as possible. And sometimes in life, you run into certain people. Sometimes, whether it be in the workplace or out when you're shopping or out going to events, sometimes you come across certain people, and sometimes you might come across somebody that you're not particularly fond of, and you can just walk past them or whatever. You know what I mean? Just whatever. But my goal was to try to avoid them as much as possible, and I didn't really want to really have a lot of personal one-on-one interaction with the person. And I wasn't, mad towards the person. I was never one to really like cuss them out or you know what I mean, just like put their name out on social media and be like, this person, I don't like them, I don't want to have nothing to do with them. I was never really like that. But I just steered clear. And there were certain folks that I had mentioned to one time, like, listen, I really just don't want to interact with this person right now. I just don't want to do it. I want to avoid them as much as possible. I didn't talk bad. I just made it clear that I was standing my ground on this and I had this boundary. See what I'm saying? Because sometimes you have to set boundaries. When people don't respect you and they don't respect your boundaries, you just have to set a boundary. It's nothing personal. It's not even really business. It's just a boundary. It's a personal boundary that I had set. And so when I had said this to this group of people, this woman that I call my Vanna White they were a part of the group that I said, listen, I just don't really want to be involved with this particular person. So time goes by, and Vanna White, the one that I call my Vanna White, was setting up this event and asked if I would come and be a part of this particular event, participate in a particular event. And I felt it an honor that they would really, that they would consider me, you know what I mean? Like they seemed happy about me participating. And I felt very honored simply because it was them. And I really thought something of them. And so I agreed, but I had a funny feeling about it, and I had a funny feeling, and I had a funny feeling that I should have went with my better judgment. So really, it's on me. I can't really be mad at anybody else, but it was on me that I kind of went against my better judgment, and I went to this event, and I go to this event, and the one I call the Vanna Whiiiiite had mentioned, the different people that were going to be participating because I got there kind of early, but she was talking to me and some others about who I was going to be participating in this event. And she just so happened to name everybody that was going to be participating except for one person. And it turns out that the one person she didn't mention was just so happened to be the very person that I had been trying to avoid. And I find out because someone else participating kind of dropped the bomb on me. And they found some humor in it. And based off of what they had said and what some other people did and said at the event, it was kind of like other people were in on it. In other words, there were certain other people that knew that this was kind of a setup, but you know what I mean? It was just kind of like, well, let's watch and see what happens. One of those kind of things. And so, and that's what happened, when I found out that this one particular person that was not named was a participant in this event that I was also asked to participate in. The thing that was impressed upon me was it's a setup to see how you will react and what you will say. In other words, there were certain people expecting a bad or negative reaction. And so people knew, and so they were waiting to see how I would react and what I would say based off of, when they saw I would finally find out that this particular person was going to be in this event, a part of this event. And so since I had that feeling that that's what was going on, I didn't act negative at all. I didn't say anything negative. I didn't say anything about the person being a part of the event. I just did my part. I shine bright like a diamond, if I do say so myself, at this event. not to sound arrogant or toot my horn, but I think I showed what I had. And so when the event was over, I was gracious and I, said my goodbyes and went on my way, and that was it. But here's the thing: I didn't get on social media and trash anybody or say this and that. I was not disrespectful. I was not immature about it. I didn't say anything bad at all. But what I did do was I removed my Vanna Whiiiiite from my friends list. I just kind of removed them. And I was quiet about it. I hadn't said anything to what I call my Vanna Whiiiiite since. I just didn't say anything. But I removed them because I knew that they were a go-between, or that's how I perceived it. Because, like I said, it was, they knew what was going on. You know what I mean? So it was just kind of like, well, you kind of put me in the spot knowing I didn't want to be in a position like this. So in my mind, I'm thinking I just got to let you go. It just is what it is. So let me say this, because I want to explain this real quick. There are different reasons why when we find out that someone is a bit of what you could call a go-between between you and an enemy, or you and somebody that you're not quite getting along with. Sometimes we don't know and then we find out and then we separate, but sometimes people will keep an in-between around. And there are a few reasons why. One reason why we keep the in-betweens close to us is sometimes it's because we're in denial. Like we find out things and we see the signs, but it's like we ignore the signs because it's just like, oh, well, maybe it's in my head. Maybe I'm just misunderstanding. But as the saying goes, when people show you who they really are, believe them. So that's one thing, being in denial. Another issue is because this right here, now watch this one, and I want y'all to really hear this one. And I've been this way in the past, And I learned not to do this. So listen closely to this one, because so many people do this one, and it's a mistake when they do this. What they do is they find out that someone's a go-between, and what they'll do is this. When they find out, they'll keep them around, and what they'll do is they'll purposely tell the go-between all these good things that they've got going on and all these good things that they've got planned. And they do this because they know that the go-between is going to go back and tell their enemy certain things, tell their enemy the good things that they've got planned and what they're doing, this, that, and the third. They do that because what they're hoping to do is they're hoping that their enemy hears it, and they're hoping that their enemy gets jealous. Come on. They're trying to make their enemy jealous. They're wanting their enemy to hear that everything's good, because they want their enemy to feel like they're failing at being an enemy. Right? They're trying to send a message to their enemy that everything's good here and this, that, and the third. Come on. That's the mistake that a lot of people will make. They know that somebody is listening with the intent of going back and telling something, but they're telling all their business on purpose because they want to rub it in their enemy's face when the message gets back to them. But that's a mistake. And it's really no offense to anybody that does this, but this can be a little bit of immaturity, because you have to step back and look at the big picture, which is, listen, all you're doing is giving them ammo. That's all you're really doing. You're setting yourself up more than you're setting up your enemy, because your enemies, when they hear these things, it's only going to want to make them come after you more, and it's going to encourage them. Listen, it's going to encourage them to want to try to sabotage not just what you got going on, but what could happen. See, sometimes your enemies will hear about the good that might be about to happen, and they'll go to different people and try to stop them from helping you with what it is that you're wanting to do. They will cause problems. They will cause distractions. If they're into witchcraft, they'll send witchcraft your way, or try to. They'll cause all these problems, and next thing you know, you're dealing with spiritual warfare. You're dealing with people all of a sudden getting quiet on you or turning on you, and you don't know why, but it's because they've been lied to about you, and it's a bunch of nonsense. But really you're the root of it, because you just wanted your enemies to know everything, when in reality, it's best to try to avoid them altogether and set boundaries so that they know as little as possible. And when they do know something, it's after the fact, and it's too late to really try to do much about it. That's the smartest way. Now, does it always work out that way? No, because there's always points in your life where someone who you don't suspect may go back and say this, that, and the third, and it's out of your control. But what I'm saying is, when you find out that someone is a bit of a go-between, sometimes you have to, set the boundaries and keep your distance. And that doesn't mean you got to be mean to the person. That doesn't mean you got to, go off on them. Sometimes it's actually better to not let a person know that you know. Come on. Because while they're trying to get info from you, really you're getting info from them that helps you to know how to avoid them. Come on. It's called staying a step or two steps ahead. See what I'm saying? So sometimes it's better to just, not really go there and start an argument. But my point is, when you see it, it's better to set those boundaries and be careful of what you do and don't say to them. See what I'm saying? It's better to not, be so close with them for your own benefit. And you might like them or, who they present to be, but you have to respect yourself, because listen, if you want people to respect you, you have to show them how to respect you. And one of the ways is setting healthy boundaries. You have to show people to respect your boundaries. If people see they can do you any kind of way, they're not going to respect you. And I've seen this happen a lot in my life. Sometimes you just have to do it. And sometimes it's tough, because sometimes you have to detach and separate from people that you love, sometimes people that you admire, that you look up to, that you're inspired by. But sometimes in life you have to do it. It doesn't matter how much you look up to somebody. So sometimes it's denial. Sometimes it's intentional to try to rub it in the enemy's face and make them jealous. But another reason why people will stay attached to someone when they find out that they're a go-between, they'll do it because they're living in a fantasy land, so to speak. And I was just joking the other sermon about that song that Mariah Carey sung, "Sweet, Sweet Fantasy Baby." Yeah, like you start living in the fantasy. I had to get out of the fantasy, right? The Wheel of Fortune fantasy of this is my Vanna White. You know, maybe they're just somebody else's Vanna White, but apparently not mine. But you get my point. My point, simply put, is even though it's somebody that I admire, that I looked up to, that I have watched for a few years, and I've admired how they've gone about things and carried themselves and how well they seem to manage things and manage situations and friendships, and just seeing how well they do what they do. You know, it sucks, but sometimes you just have to keep the distance. And it's hard sometimes. It really is. Sometimes you just have to let go of the fantasy, you know, and that's life. You know, as kids, it's hard to let go of certain fantasies, so to speak. But as an adult, it has to become easier to you. It has to. It's tough, but again, that is life. And if you don't accept reality for what it is, sometimes it will hurt you in the long run. And you sometimes you'll have nobody to blame but yourself. And so that's just how it goes. So, Second Kings, starting here at the beginning of Second Kings, it says this. Now Naaman, captain of the host of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master and honorable, because by him the Lord had given deliverance unto Syria. He was also a mighty man in valor, but he was a leper. Here we see a king named Naaman. He is a mighty man of valor, an honorable man. He is one that is greatly looked up to, but he has a case of leprosy. Leprosy is a disease that we come across quite a bit in the Old Testament. It is a disease that will cause one's skin to get very, very white as snow and begin to rot and deteriorate. And so, of course, it's going to make the skin where it's rotting stink. And so, it's believed that this king possibly used not just clothes, but maybe his armor to cover up the areas where he had leprosy and to cover up the possible stench, because if it had gotten out to the public that he had leprosy, that would have been a problem. That would have been a problem, you know, because during these times when someone had leprosy, they had to be quarantined, or they would be expected to be quarantined for so many days, and they had to be checked by a priest or whoever to make sure that they were good. And if they weren't, they had to go back into being quarantined. And, you know, it was this whole thing. And if somebody had leprosy and they were out in public, people, listen, they had to be careful not to really touch people because of how contagious it was, and people would stand back, and some people would even point at the person with leprosy and yell, unclean, unclean. They had to announce that the person was unclean so that folks would watch out, you know, and not get too close, because they didn't want to touch somebody that had leprosy. Nobody else wanted it. And so it was hard, and for somebody to be in high ranking, you know, it could be an embarrassment to have leprosy. And one reason why isn't just the fact that you would have to avoid public as much as possible, and people wouldn't want to have much to do with you. But there's another reason why. The reason why was because a lot of times in Old Testament times, there were people that believed that if you had leprosy, it may not have always been because you caught it from someone else, but because you had sinned. It was a disease that was oftentimes intertwined with sin, or the belief that you had sinned and that was the cause of you getting this. In other words, a lot of times people would believe that you were smote by the hand of God with leprosy. So people would question Like, okay, if people don't see how you could have gotten it from somebody else, people are going to sideways you, look at you sideways, look at you funny, and wonder why you have it, wonder how you got it, or rather, wonder what you did to cause God to want to smite you with a disease like leprosy. So it would really make people be weary of you, not just of the disease, but what's going on with you personally that would cause God to smite you with this. So, it really caused people to look at you funny. And so this king has a problem on his hands with this case of leprosy. And so he finds out from someone that there is a man of God who can help him. And so we're going to skip down to verse 9, and it says this. So Naaman came with his horses and with his chariot and stood at the door of the house of Elisha. And we know Elisha is a mighty man of God. So verse 10, and Elisha sent a messenger unto him saying, go and wash in Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come again to thee, and thou shalt be clean. But Naaman was wroth. Here we go with that word wrath again. We didn't mention that in the past 2 sermons. You got being angry, and then you got what the Bible calls wrath, which means very angry, to be steaming, piping hot with anger. So Naaman is mad. So why? It says this. It says, and went away and said, behold, I thought he will surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God and strike his hand over the place and recover the leper. Are not Abana and Pharpar, rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? May I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned and went away in rage. So here's why Naaman is mad. He gets to the house of Elisha. Elisha sends a messenger out to the door to speak to Naaman. And this messenger says to King Naaman, listen, go out to the Jordan River and dip down in it 7 times, and your flesh will be made clean. You'll be whole again. You'll be well again. But Naaman is mad. First of all, Naaman is mad. He's mad because the man of God, Elisha himself, did not come out to him. So he's already, offended that the official man of God, Elisha, didn't come out to him. He's mad that he sent a messenger instead. So he's mad about that. Then he's mad. Then he's mad about the fact that he didn't come out and just speak over the leprosy, and the leprosy was gone. So he's mad about that he didn't get his instant healing of the leprosy. But he's even more so mad that he's told that to get his healing, he has to go to the Jordan River and dip 7 times. Not so much the act of doing it, but he's mad that it's the Jordan River. He says, well, aren't there more clean rivers that I can go to? What sense would it make to go to a filthy river to try to get clean of leprosy? This doesn't make sense. But he's more so caught up in the logic of it than he is in the faith of it. Come on. It was a moment for him to enact his faith. So he gets mad about it. And it says this in verse 13, and his servant came near and spake unto him and said, my father, if the prophet had bid thee to do some great thing, wouldest thou not have it? How much rather then when he saith to thee, wash and be clean? So Naaman is mad. He's trying to walk off, but his personal servant comes up to him and says, listen, if the guy had told you to do some real big over the top thing to get healed, you would have did it. You just don't want to do this simple thing of going and dipping in the Jordan. Just try it. Just try it and see. So his servant is talking some sense in him and saying, listen, just basically what he's saying is just have some faith and try it. See what happens. You've got nothing really to lose. See, that's what we need in our lives. We need somebody who has the sense to talk us into something good when we're trying to talk ourselves out of something good. We need good friends like that. Someone that tells you, listen, just have a little bit of faith. Just try and see. This is a good thing. So we see that, and it says this, verse 14, Then went he down and dipped himself 7 times in the Jordan River, according to the saying of the man of God. And his flesh came again like unto the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. So he went, he had faith, he dipped, and his flesh was made clean again. Verse 15. And he returned to the man of God, he and all his company, and came and stood before him, and he said, Behold, now I know that there is no God in all the earth but in Israel. Now therefore I pray thee, take a blessing of thy servant. But he said, As the Lord liveth, before whom I stand, I will receive none. And he urged him to take it, but he refused. So Naaman comes back to the man of God. He says, Look, I dipped. I did what you said. I had the faith. I dipped 7 times in the Jordan. I was made whole. My flesh is clean. I no longer have leprosy. Let me thank you. Let me show you my appreciation. Let me give you some things. So he's willing to offer him some nice clothing, some fancy clothing, and some money, and this, that, and the third. And Elisha says, No, it's okay. And he's like, No, 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 no. He begins to urge him to take a gift, and he's like, No, it's okay. It's okay. So he doesn't take the gift. He's good. He's good. But watch this. This is where it gets interesting. Now watch this. Skipping to verse 19, it says this. And he said unto him, Go in peace. So he departed from him a little way. So he says, Go in peace. Naaman is leaving. Now watch this, verse 20. But Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said, Behold, my master has spared Naaman this Syrian, in not receiving at his hands that which he brought. But as the Lord liveth, I will run after him and take somewhat of him. So Gehazi, who is Elisha's servant, when Gehazi sees that his master Elisha does not take any gifts from Naaman, he says to himself, Oh man, he didn't take any of the gifts. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to wait till Naaman is a little bit further off on his journey, and I'm going to go after him, and I'm going to get something from him. I'm going to get the stuff that my master didn't take. But watch how he does it. Watch, y'all. This is wild right here, verse 21. So Gehazi followed after Naaman, and when Naaman saw him running after him, he lighted down from the chariot to meet him and said, Is all well? And he said, All is well. My master hath sent me, saying, Behold, even now there be come to me from Mount Ephraim 2 young men of the 2 sons of the prophets. Give them, I pray thee, a talent of silver and 2 changes of garment. So Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, Gehazi goes after Naaman and lies in his master's name. He lies and he says, My master sent me. See how he's being a bit of a go-between, not necessarily to start drama, but he goes and he lies in his master's name to get some type of benefit. Because he knows that he knows that Naaman will trust him, because Naaman knows that he is the servant of Elisha, the man who helped him get healed of his leprosy. So he's taking advantage. He goes after him. He lies. He said, My master said that these 2 men came unto me, and I don't have anything to give them. So could you give them some money and some clothes? So he's lying, but he's lying to get this for himself, for his own benefit. So he's lying on his master, and he's lying and acting like what he's being given is going to go to someone else, but he's actually planning to keep it for himself. Look at this, verse 23. And Naaman said, Be content, take 2 talents. And he urged him and bound 2 talents of silver in 2 bags with 2 changes of garments, and laid them upon 2 servants, and they bare them before him. So not only is Gehazi getting some stuff out of all these lies, but look, Naaman is sending servants to carry the stuff, to help carry the stuff. So now, not only that, but now Gehazi is now getting free labor out of somebody else's servants over a lie. Oh boy. Verse 24, and when he came to the tower, he took them from their hand and bestowed them in the house, and he let the men go and depart. And they departed. So he let them go. He let the servants go, and he's going in the house. Verse 25, but when he went in and stood before his master, and Elisha said unto him, whence comest thou, Gehazi? And he said, thy servant went no whither. So when he comes in, his master Elisha questions him and says, where'd you go? And Gehazi lies and says, oh, I didn't go anywhere. I ain't been nowhere. But watch this. Verse 26 and 27, it says this. And he said unto him, went not mine heart with thee when the man turned again from his chariot to meet thee? Is it a time to receive money and to receive garments, and olive yards and vineyards and sheep and oxen and men servant and maid servants? So right there in verse 26, he calls him out. Elisha calls him out. He drops hints and calls him out and says, my heart was with you when you left, when you went after that man, the man that just left with the leprosy, Naaman. You went after him. You went after his chariot. And he says, is this a time to be getting clothes and money and other things? So he's dropping that hint to him. I know where you went. I know where you were last summer. No, I know where you went. You know, it's kind of like when you come home from doing something you shouldn't, and you come in the house and your mom or one of your parents are standing there and they're just looking at you like, where have you been? And they're not asking you to find out where you've been. They already know. They're asking you to see if you're going to be honest with them. Kind of one of those things. So verse 27, the last verse, it says this. Watch this. The leprosy therefore of Naaman shall cleave unto thee and unto thy seed forever. And he went out from his presence a leper as white as snow. So now, because of what Gehazi has done, being this little sneaky go-between, he has now been cursed with the same leprosy that had just left Naaman. So he went to get something from Naaman deceitfully. Come on, but he got something all right. He got more than he bargained for. He went after Naaman and told some lies to get things from him and to get free labor and all these things. But after telling all these lies to get all these things from Naaman, he got something else from Naaman that he was not intentionally trying to get, and that was his leprosy. And the leprosy would plague him and his seed or his children to come, his legacy to come. Why do I bring that up? I bring that up to say this. If there's anyone watching this sermon, maybe you're a go-between. Maybe you're the type of person that likes to stir stuff, go back and forth between enemies and start stuff. Or maybe you're one that just likes to go and hang out with somebody to look good, and then you go over here and you try to receive all these benefits in their name, but you're lying and telling stories to get all these things and to get all this free stuff and free help off of their name and off of all these lies. Here's a warning to you. You must be careful. Not just because it's wrong, but there's another reason. And the reason is, if you're not careful, you will get more than what you bargained for. You will begin to take on the issues that the people, at least one of the people, if not both parties, you'll begin to take on the issues and the problems and the trials and tribulations that they are taking on. See, you're causing problems, but those problems will in turn fall onto you, and it's a little something called karma. I talked about it not too long ago on social media about karma and how the problem isn't just that you have people who don't believe in it. The other bigger issue is you have people who believe in it, but they don't believe that it will fall unto them. You have people who believe that they are exempt from karma, that it won't touch them. Come on. They think they're too good for it. They think that because of their money or because of their position or because of who they know, because of their connections, they believe that because of all these other things that karma won't touch them. But what happens is they go and they cause all these problems and they sow discord, and the Bible makes it clear that you will reap what you sow. And so what happens is you will find yourself dealing with things and having problems based off of the issues and the problems of the people that you go between. You go and you start trouble to cause financial problems for people, and then you wonder why all of a sudden out of nowhere you've got financial problems. You go and you purposely try to stir stuff up in people's relationships, and then you wonder why your personal relationship or marriage is having issues out of nowhere. You go over here and you do witchcraft and you try to cause sickness and illnesses on people, and now you're wondering why you're sick and why you're ill and why you're having similar issues to that person you wished harm on. Okay, come on. You're wanting people to have trouble in the workplace because it's funny, but now you're having trouble in the workplace, or you're having trouble finding employment altogether. Maybe you got fired over something that you really didn't do, or maybe they just let your job go. Come on. Now you're trying to find work and you've got all these credentials and you got all the degrees of a thermometer, but you still can't get hired. But then you're wondering why the person you tried to do wrong, come on, and curse, now you're wondering why they've got all these opportunities, some of which they're probably not even qualified for. The reason why these things happen and fall unto you suddenly without you seeing it coming and without your permission is because of you sowing discord. It's because of you starting stuff, starting trouble, causing problems. Come on. You wonder why, but that's why. And you keep wanting to believe that perhaps it's all coincidence that the same problems that you're causing with others is falling onto you, and you can't blame anybody because it's not seeming to come from anybody. It's coming from other people and other sources, but the reason why isn't a coincidence. It's karma, not coincidence. Karma, it's reaping what you sow. See, sometimes we think that if it doesn't happen right away, it's not going to happen, but oftentimes it happens in times and in situations that we least expect, and oftentimes at moments when it's also least convenient. When it's least convenient for something bad to happen, that's when it happens. And that's why it happens. And then you wonder why the hardships that fall onto a person that you're causing problems with, now you're wondering why you're having those similar issues. Come on. Come on. You're right. Come on. That's what happens. You use people, putting mileage on their car, then you wonder why your car is falling apart. You didn't want to put no mileage on yours, but now you're still having problems anyway that you're always having to put money into. Taking advantage of people, taking advantage of people's time and money and resources for your personal gain while putting others down or lying on others or telling other people's business and trying to see what you can gain by going back and forth between people, like the monkey in the middle, so to speak. And then you wonder why these things begin to happen. And you know it's not somebody that you're interfering with causing it, so you think it's just a coincidence, but it's not. You have to be careful, and you should not be that go-between, because just as this person was trying to be slick to gain, he gained. And he got a lot more than he bargained for. And what he ended up getting, wouldn't want to be in his shoes with leprosy right now. But anyway, I hope that whoever needed this message got it. And I hope that it blesses those who are in a situation where they're dealing with the go-betweens and they're wondering what to do, and your answer simply put is let it go, move out of the way, set boundaries. Set boundaries. I know sometimes it's hard to let go when you love somebody and you care about somebody and you look up to them and they mean something to you. And you think, I could expect this from all these other people that have done me this way, but you were the one person that I thought wouldn't do this. And you did it. And I know it hurts when you think that. I've been there. I know it hurts when that one person that you think would do right by you is the one person that seems to set you up or do you dirty, that won't respect you. And sometimes you may even deal with guilt where you think, well, if I had just said this and I just said that, maybe it wouldn't happen. I thought the same thing too. Maybe if I had told my Vanna Whiiiiite way back when just how much I was mind blown by them and how much I admired them and how much I looked up to them and how much they're not overseen because I see them. Maybe if I had said that and let it be known, maybe they wouldn't have done what they did and maybe things would be different. But I can't dwell on that. I can't hold some guilt towards myself and have the coulda, woulda, shoulda haves. Because at the end of the day, what's done is done. And it is what it is. You have to be willing to just let it go. Don't hold grudges. Forgive, which is something I'm getting ready to talk to in another sermon. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear about forgiveness, but you might want to tune into this sermon because I'm telling you, I'm about to hit on some stuff that you probably don't see coming. I'm just going to hit on some scriptures about forgiving you probably don't expect. So you might want to tune in for that one. I think that was going to be a real good message. But anyway, forgive, let it go, let it fly, but set your boundaries and be wise. Be wise. Listen to your gut. Do what you know you need to do. And if you're the go-between, this is your time to sit down somewhere. That's it. That's all I got to say. Just kindly put. Just sit down somewhere. Have a seat. Stop being a busybody and quit doing the most. Just because you're doing too much. So just, you're doing the most, but really you're doing too much. You need to have a seat. You're being messy. So, be clean, like Naaman. Be clean. No, don't be messy, be clean. But anyway, thank you all for tuning in. Heavenly Father, I thank you for another time to minister another word. Lord, I pray that those who would need this message, that they would get it, that they will receive it. And Lord, I'm praying that people will get to a place, Lord, where they will want to be more centered, not all over the place, not double-minded, not going from this person to that to cause trouble or to stir things up, but that people will just have a oneness in their mind and that let their yay be yay, let their nay be nay, let their yes be yes and their no be no, and that they stand on what they know and what they believe, and that they don't play games, but that they just be real. And if it comes to taking sides, maybe it's best to just step aside and be neutral and let people do what they do without being the monkey in the middle. Lord, I give you all the praise, all the glory, and all the honor. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.